creativity doesn't always arrive in a flurry of inspiration. More often, it begins in a fog, tired, a little off kilter, like I felt the day that I filmed this mermaid coming to life. But here's the thing I've learned. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to begin. And what I know, I don't wait for creativity to call me. I call on creativity, and I do that by starting. If I just pick up my favorite color or an art supply that appeals to me, a little bit of art supply Reiki, if you will. It seems that once the art supplies start flowing and the colors start flowing, so do the ideas. So let's just dive right in. Art supply that called to me as I was creating this were the WaterColour Library. These are a series of watercolor tubes, and I really wanted to play with granulating watercolor. In these sets, there are 3 colors that really help create granulating effects. Heart of Darkness, which is an indigo, 20,000 Leagues, which is a cobalt turquoise, and Lost World, which is a sepia. And these 3 colors contain heavy pigment. And when you mix them with each other, or you mix them with other colors, you get these beautiful color splits that start to happen on your paper as the water dries. So you get beautiful graduations or gradiating color. So a really neat trick to try on yourself if you're struggling with starting some creativity is pick an art supply that does something cool like this, because then rather than your mind thinking about what you're creating, where you're going, must make it perfect and all of that other claptrap, it can then just enjoy the playful moments. I'm also going to add in some shimmer and sparkling or metallic anything in little doses here and there. Just make me feel happy, because I love working in a journal, and that involves pages and paper moving. The art is moving. So a whole nother element and a de-emphasis on outcome can be achieved just by picking an art supply that does a trick, which is how I think of granulating or gradiating watercolors. So here I've used those 3 colors that I showed you in different mixes. I mixed them in their 3 different ways into one of my Fantastic palettes. This is where I've just squeezed a little bit of each of those colors in combinations of 2, so that I'm creating new colors that are going to split and gradiate. This is an experimental process, and the results, well, you'll see as we go. They're beautiful. So I'm getting dark colors, natural colors, because of the 3 colors that I've picked, but there's life in there because of the cobalt turquoise, which in this set is called 20,000 Leagues, because all of the colors are named after classic books. Some of the books I loved, some of the books I had to read at school under sufferance, I must admit, but all books are interesting, right? But as with all of the art supplies that I love designing and the colors that I love naming, the names are whimsical, the names are fun, the names are, well, honestly, their names are whimsical and fun because I love naming things. And don't let that fool you or trick you into thinking that these aren't dead serious. Just because I'm having fun naming things doesn't mean the art supplies themselves aren't dead serious. And I find the trick with granulating watercolors or any art supply that does a trick like this, that has little something extra special up its sleeve, it's when you mix the different colors together or let them touch each other that you exponentially increase whatever magic qualities that art supply has. So this is why starting with something like this is so wonderful for kickstarting that creativity and putting out that call, because it's doing it, it's helping you, it's doing it itself as well. Now I wanted to add a different type of watercolor, And just like I semi-made the other ones, these watercolors that I'm using here are called Welcome Matte, and they're made from a set of pigments that I have in a set. And I've made watercolor with them just by basically adding gum arabic. The funny thing about the Welcome Matte pigments, they dry very matte, they have a little opacity. They're based on a Japanese style traditional watercolor that usually you have to mix up every time you want to use it. It's part of the whole ritual of watercolor. But with these watercolors, with these particular pigments, you can make a watercolor pan. It's going to crack and look a little bit, let's say wabi-sabi, a little bit imperfect for sure. But that does not affect the functionality at all. And I've placed my little handmade watercolors that don't need a grinding board or anything like that. You literally can just mix them up in just a little bowl. I've got colour cauldrons that I mix them up in. And I've got this lovely selection of colours, and I'm adding them to the way more transparent watercolour from the Colour Library colours, my granulating mixes that I've created. So I've got a little bit of that, and then mixing that with a little bit of that matte watercolour to see what kind of effects I'm going to get, because they're really quite different to each other. And even if I stick in the same palette, these blues and greens, I'm going to get different effects and some visual variation, some texture. And I haven't even started creating a thing yet. I'm just in an abstract phase of exploring colour and letting my creativity wake up and join me. Another fabulous way of just letting go. And again, it's just a perfection busting maneuver. And that is to fill a big brush with lots of water and lovely pigment, splash it and splatter it at the page. It always works out. It always works out, in my experience. And by mixing the different colours that I've created, those little gradiating mixes, and then bringing some of those colours back into my, what do we call this thing on the left? Splodge? A kerfuffle? By letting it come together maybe and join the other side, we're going to, a little page is starting to happen. And then eventually, well, the way my mind works is eventually I'll start to see something in the messes that I'm making. So at the moment, they're two very separate messes, and I'm doing it because I want to see what the watercolors will do. I want to see the mix of the opaque-ish Welcome Matte colors in these beautiful soft blues and purples and greens, and how that mixes with my gradiating colors that I've created with the Color Library. And oh, how gorgeous is that light blue? Oh my goodness. Oh, and I do have my journal propped up a little bit so that the colour is running down the page a little bit. So maybe I'll get a little bit of drippage, but also I'll get a little falling of the pigments. The pigments will keep moving, and when you're working with gradiating or graduating pigments that are on the move, that's just going to elevate that or accentuate that. And with my intuition firmly in the driver's seat, it's not going anywhere, I reach for my fairy dust pigment watercolors. So these have lots and lots of shimmer in them. There's 50 different colors, so there's lots of eye candy inspiration for me. And this, I think, is at the point where my muse or the creativity has answered the call that I've put out. Even though when I started this, I knew I just wanted to create something, or I probably needed to create something. And what I know from years and years of experience is that if you start the art, it will eventually just flow. Things will happen. And I know in myself that selecting certain colours says to me that I'm feeling happy, that I'm in that turquoise state of mind. And I'm not always in that turquoise state of mind, but turquoise, I suppose, is my spirit animal. It's my happy place. It's my happy colour. So by adding a shimmering, sparkling turquoise into what I've started creating, and by using that colour to join these two separate little painterly messes, we'll be kind to them. Now a picture is starting to emerge. There's something happening, and at this point now, those little flip-de-doo-doos, the little things on the side, they're really starting to look like trees to me. And it's at this point where I'm very glad I'm working in one of my journals and I can trust the paper the way that I do. This is a watercolor paper that's been specially selected because it can handle just about anything that you throw at it and won't pill or do anything dastardly when you've got lots of water on it. What might happen though is because of you've got the water on one side and not on the other, the pages are going to bend a little bit. So I've just put some little handy helpers, some little clips from my store on the sides there just to keep the paper down so that it stays relatively flat. I don't actually mind when paper bends because it actually does create, you know, those opportunities for the paint and water to travel. But in this case, we've pinned it down so that it can't get too out of control. And I'm just adding some more decorative elements. We've got our first warm colour appearing in here, and I'm splashing it around. This little set of colours on this palette is part of the fairy dust collection. So fairy dust, the whole idea of it is all of the colours are named after different butterfly species. And these particular colours that I've just been holding in my hand are the moth edition. So they're a little bit darker, a little bit more mysterious, like a moth, and a little bit, I don't want to say the word drab, but there you go, I did. A little bit like a moth compared to a butterfly. But by adding in some of those warm colours, which include golds, because, you know, that's that yellow base, we just add a little bit more liveliness and a little bit more contrast in there, a little bit more happening. Also remembering that this is all very wet. I've got a nice big juicy brush, one of my brush ballet brushes from the On Point set, and it holds a lot of water. You saw me using a sponge earlier. It's the Drench watercolour sponge. I call my sponge Dame Judy Drench. So Dame Judy helps me control the amount of water that I've got coming off that brush, but I want to be messy. I want to be experimental and splashy because I know, well, I'm having fun. Number one, that's the most important thing. But I also know that, well, the more fun I have and the more splashy it gets, the more interesting this is going to be as it dries, because the more water I've got there, the less control I have. And these warmer colours that I've put down will start to dissipate and move into and flamingle with the colours that are existing there, so they won't stand out as much. And I love this collaborative feeling that I get with watercolour. I say, hey, let's do this. The watercolour says, great, now let's do that. And it's just this back and forth. So while I'm letting the colour do its thing on one side of the page, one part of my paper, I'm off doing something else, like creating palm trees. And now we've got an island happening. And this is a good point to have a break, a little puppy break, while everything dries. And then I can do a little bit of art supply Reiki again. I literally waft my hands over the art supplies and I see what calls to me. I see if there's some energy or my intuition pulls me towards something. Now, very often that thing might be a metallic paint pen, and the one that I've picked up is from the Tippy Toes collection, from the Call the Carriage collection. This is one of the golds from that set. And I'm looking into this mishmash of watercolour, and I can see my palm trees on one side and this, well, could it be blue sky, clouds, jet stream, chemtrails, who knows, going towards there. But it could also be something pointing. So I have started to construct a mermaid in here pointing to this beautiful paradise, this beautiful coastal scene. Now, who knows the way art works in our mind? Am I the mermaid? Am I pointing to where I want to be, to where I want to go and sit on this nice tropical island? Or am I calling in the fact that I need a holiday? Or am I just responding to the colours that are here and having fun? Maybe all of these things can be true all at once. This is part of the joy of art journaling in particular, because I'm creating this for myself. I'm doing this to show you as well, but I'm creating this in an art journal for me. It's not as a finished piece of art to put on the wall, although I can make it into something like that. But because this is for me, it goes into that realm of intuition and non-perfection, and I almost find it difficult. It's so amorphous, it's so shadowy and in a different realm. Sometimes the meaning of what it is that I'm creating comes out and it's crystal clear, and I look back and think, oh, that's exactly what that page was about. Because usually it's about something, because you're creating from your mind or your heart or wherever it is that your creative muse lives, hands maybe. It's coming from that place, and well, at least for me, because things are very unplanned, and that's the way I like it. Sometimes I do very planned artwork, but not today. So to make my little mermaid stand out a bit more, I'm using a white paint pen on the outside of her. Obviously, I'm not going for realism. Well, it's a giant floating mermaid if that's the case. So she's the Kraken, I guess, causing a tsunami. But that's not, I think, what I'm after here. It's something that will evolve with story if and when it needs to. So this started as an experiment, and then it moved into a background with shimmer and water. There was no plan, no sketch, just colour I was drawn to in the moment, letting the materials choose me. And then I place brush to paper, just gently, even uncertainly, and the energy shifts. The act of starting calls in the creative muse. It's amazing how that happens. And this mermaid appeared from the wash, stern and strong. She wasn't planned, but she arrived with purpose, pointing me back towards myself. And this might be one of my favourite pieces from a live stream. I remember feeling stripped down, a bit fragile, just like I do today, really. But the act of making brought me back. You don't have to wait for the right mood. You don't need to have the perfect idea. You can start by just picking a colour that calls to you. Let your hands move. Let the supplies guide you. That's how I show up for my art, and that's how it shows up for me. Thank you for spending this quiet moment with me. Ebb Flow isn't just how I paint, it's how I reconnect with my art, with myself. Let the shimmer call to you like it has to me, and let the page meet your hand. And if you'd like to see what I've used, I've linked everything below, just in case this wave of colour wants to meet you too.